We'll see. Alright. I just pressed the go live button on YouTube. Let's see. Am I going live on YouTube? There we go. I am live on YouTube as well. Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and today we are back with the Ghost of Alcantra. This is a free game on Steam that I've been playing ever since the Fall in Love Festival that I did a few weeks ago. This was a really interesting game with a really cool mystery that I wanted to play a little bit more of, so let's go ahead and load into my save file. It is Wednesday, September 29th. I think this is the 1990s. I forgot the date. Hold on. What date is this? Oh, wait. I was reading the save file date. Oops. I was on my way to meet with Alexandria. Earlier, I decided to make use of my time before the meeting to learn what I could about the investigation. Uncle Kyle had been sleeping on the couch, and my parents were out of the house. Hold on. Are you about to look into some private files of your uncle about the investigation? I'm a good kid for the most part, but I'm not above a little rule breaking. I casually walked into the room Uncle Kyle was staying in, and rummaged around his briefcase to find some details on the suspects. My friend group chat is popping off right now. Hold on. Seems like people are buying Christmas gifts already. I need to do that. And I'll read the messages soon, because I am ready to guess what people are getting me for Christmas. I did understand most of the documents, but here's what I was able to find out. The Thorns were obviously the most suspicious. It looked like they were being treated as the most likely candidate to have Marina Rada killed. The owner and bartender of a place called the Classy Jack, Delilah Loving Smith, was also under suspicion. She had a public fight with Marina about the tourism proposal. Miss Loving Smith was a nice middle-aged lady, but she was also incredibly prideful and didn't back down from confrontation. She had been against the proposal and Marina had been for it. They had a pretty big spat about it. A spat? I have never heard of a spat before. What? Oh, is it like another way to say a public fight or a dispute? A spat? That sounds so strange. A spat. Is this like a Michigan thing? Oh, now I'm doing the whole Midwest state rivalry thing. Is this a Michigan thing? Hold on. Spat. A petty quarrel. A petty quarrel. Is this something they say in Michigan all the time or something? Like, I'm not from Michigan myself, but I'm from pretty close to the area. State rivalry, let's go. The next suspect was Beryl Johnson, not related to the Johnsons who ran the festival ice cream stall. She was an older woman deeply involved with local politics. She's the head of the faction against the tourism proposal. However, the reason she was a suspect was because her ex-husband had an affair with Marina Radek many years ago. Her ex-husband left town shortly after. It could be a crime of passion. The last suspect was Vladimir Keshak, a retired professor in the 70s. I didn't know anything about the dude, but the profile cited that he and Marina both came here from Serbia. Apparently, Mr. Keshak had a massive crush on her when they were in Serbia, and when they reunited here, he took it as a sign of destiny. Marina didn't reciprocate his feelings. It looked like he was a weird dude. Uncle Kyle had a note that mentioned that he kept going on about her ghost, and how it kept haunting him. I'm guessing the ghost referred to Marina Radek, or the ghost of the game. The ghost of Alcantra. It's a reference. Those were the suspects, and here's how Uncle Kyle ranked them in terms of suspicion. The Thorns? Beryl Johnson. Dr. Kashak? Delilah Loving Smith. That made sense to me. Delilah Loving Smith didn't really have much of a motive. Dr. Kashak and Beryl Johnson had potential motives, but were both quite old, and it was unlikely they would have committed the murder, and committed the murder in such a gruesome fashion as the murder ended up being given the physicality required. Okay. Okay, so the Thorns are number 1 in suspicion, and the next would be Beryl Johnson, Dr. Kashak, and then Delilah Loving Smith. Okay. Thorns. I'm writing this down, by the way. Thorns. Beryl Johnson. Not Jolson, Johnson. Dr. Kashak. And Delilah Loving Smith. Alright. So the Thorns are the rich people in town. Johnson's ex-husband, had an affair with Marina before her husband left. Dr. Kashak had a huge, affliction towards Marina, and Loving Smith had a dispute with her publicly regarding a proposal for the town. Okay. Now, with my usual suspicions when it comes to mystery stories, the Thorns are the most suspicious? Wow, I cannot talk today. I really cannot talk today. The Thorns are the most suspicious. However, I don't think it's the Thorns, because they're really pushing the narrative that the Thorns had something to do with this murder. However, I don't think it was the Thorns. Now, would it be Johnson, Kashak, or Loving Smith? I need more information about them. That left the Thorns, who had a motive given Marina Radek previously worked for them and had the resources to have someone killed. The last thing of note I could find was that Alicia Radek, Marina's daughter, was under police protection right now in case the family was being targeted. That would set Walburton at ease. That's what I was able to find. I apologized to Uncle Kyle in my head, but I wanted to see if Alexandria was legit. I got the feeling she was bluffing about being a Sherlockian and was just being a wheeled girl visiting town. But if she was on the right track with her deductions, I wanted to know. I left the house a little after 2:30 and showed up right at 3. Alexandra was already there, looking very pompous. I pulled my bike up to her. Hey there. Sorry if I kept you waiting. She looked at me a little standoffishly, as if I had kept her waiting. Hello. How you been? Though I guess it's only been a day. I've been well and have been thinking, and how have you been? I'm well, though I haven't been thinking. Felt that. I can't even talk today. As expected, I'm guessing you haven't read any of the books you borrowed yesterday? No. I admitted that, knowing that she'd see through any lies I could tell. She shook her head in an exaggerated motion and gave me a very displeased look. Figures, you can't trust men. They make such sweet promises only to break your heart. No, it's better to console yourself with the timeless characters of books. Much less heartbreak that way. That seemed a little dramatic. Plus, there seemed to be a lot of heartbreak in the plots of those books she told me about yesterday. Since when did I promise I would read the books? It was implicit. Okay. I promise that next time we meet, I'll have read all of Pride and Prejudice. And if you don't, we'll jump off that bridge when we get there. Is it the bridge behind Alexandria or a metaphorical bridge? She turned to look at the bridge behind us. Uh-oh. It was a figure of speech, and speaking of promises, it's time to make good on yours, Sherlock. Are you ready to solve the mysterious murders of Alcantra? Yes, I put a lot of thought into the case, and I'm ready. She made an exaggerated knuckle-cracking gesture to make herself look important. Was it like this? Or is it like... Oh, really? No crack? Okay, maybe... Oh no, I already did all the bone cracking. Dang it. I can't do the dramatic bone crack. Let's get down to business. I'm an expert on murder. Are you? I was hoping that was from her murder mysteries. Let's start with Marina Radek. We know she was an older lady. We also know that her murder was particularly gruesome, involving separation of limbs from body. It was likely that her mere death was not the only goal given the state of the body. And the police didn't report that the house was broken. The murderer was likely someone she knew and was willing to let into her house. Oh, I got something in the chat. Hi, thanks for continuing to check out our story. I'm currently in a Dungeons and Dragons session, so I can't tune in, but I hope you continue to enjoy it. Will do, Captain Erika. Or Captain Erica. Will do. I'm really enjoying this story. And I'm very curious on this list of suspects. Who may be the main suspect? Is it the Thorns, Bill Johnson, Dr. Kashak, or Loving Smith? Let's see. Given this, we can likely conclude that the murderer had a particularly deep-seated grudge. Deep-seated grudge. I figured I could play along with her. I told Alexandria about what Terrence had told me earlier, and how he thought the best explanation was something like a love affair. Okay. So Terrence believes it's a love affair, which would imply that it was either Beryl Johnson or Dr. Kashak. Now, if we go off of what, Alexandria was saying... That does also lead to, any of these suspects being the one that, Miss Raddick let into her house. Because she believes it's someone that, Miss Raddick was very close to. For which could be any of these people, actually. The Thorns, she used to work for them. Beryl Johnson, she had an affair with her ex-husband. Dr. Kashak, he had a huge infatuation from her when they left Serbia. Wrong country. And Loving Smith, I guess she's like the least involved in these lists of suspects because she's just someone who disagreed with her in a town dispute. So it's really leaning towards Bill Johnson, Dr. Kashak, or the Thorns. Because all three of them, were people that she would let into her house. But if we go off of what Terrence has said, of it being a love affair, it would either be Beryl Johnson or Dr. Kashak. Because Beryl Johnson has a connection because of her ex-husband. Meanwhile, Dr. Kashak had an infatuation of her. That's reasonable. I agree that it's plausible that Marina Raddick's murderer killed her out of pure psychopathy. Psychopaths are quite logical. While the killer waited until there was a low chance someone in the area could be a potential witness to them entering the house. It's rather bold to murder Miss Raddick in her own house when she had a commitment later that evening. Why not wait for a better opportunity after the festival? The killer got lucky nobody saw them enter Miss Raddick's house. Given this, I suspect the murder was actually an impulsive decision. They came here to meet with her, and didn't like what resulted from that meeting ending in a brutal murder. That was something I had considered. It was impressive what she had come up with so far, but she couldn't do much more with what was known publicly. However, her next words caught me by surprise. Now, let's move on to the suspects. Wait, you know the suspects? I don't know the suspects, but I figured out some potential suspects. What good? Sorry, I was reading ahead. What good would a detective be if they couldn't come up with suspects? I need to slow down my reading. I mean, that's true, but did she really go investigating on her own? Alright. From what I can tell, there are only 4 real candidates for the murder. Elgar Thorne, Vlad Thorne, Beryl Johnson, and Professor Kashak. You didn't mention Delilah Loving Smith. You did not mention her. How do you know that? She gave me a mischievous smile. So, you do know some details of the investigation, as expected from a relative of the detective. Yeah, I do. I overheard some stuff. But how do you know that? You said that this is your first time in Alcantra, right? Yes, but I don't know what that has to do with anything. You couldn't even order a cup of coffee yesterday. Even if you are a great detective, there's no way you have the social skills to pull off an investigation in a town you're unfamiliar with. She raised an eyebrow at me. That's kind of mean, don't you think? Anyway, you don't need social skills to get information. That is fair. That is fair. You don't need social skills to get information. But is it correct information? Is it correct information? Okay. How did you get your information then? Careful requesting and careful listening. That's not much of an answer. It wasn't much of a question. Are you going to let me continue? I was suspicious now. There was more to her than she let on. Was her behavior yesterday an act? And what was the purpose of that deal we made? There is also one more suspect. Oh? You mean Delilah Loving Smith? Yep, okay, she did mention Loving Smith. Yeah. I don't consider her a real suspect. A public fight in your restaurant isn't much of a motive for a murder, let alone the type of murder this was. How did you find out about the fight? That fight? I have my sources. And they are? They wish to remain anonymous. I scoffed. Of course they did. Additionally, I think if we could rule out Dr. Kashak, he's too old and frail. Sometimes old people can do some pretty impressive things. It looks like she didn't know about the ghost Dr. Kashak mentioned, so she wasn't omniscient. Beryl Johnson is more spry, but I doubt she did it as well. She's a simple character who wears her heart on her sleeve. I am not discounting Beryl Johnson either. I am not discounting her as well. She's in charge of the anti-tourism proposal faction and really cares about it. She wouldn't do something to risk her image right now. That just leaves Elgar and Vlad Thorn, who were the most obvious candidates from the start. Wouldn't the Thorns care about their image as well? The Thorns care about their image, but unlike Beryl Johnson, they have the capability to hide their involvement. The Thorns are the only ones to really lose much with Maria being alive if she had info that could compromise the Thorn legacy gained from when she worked there. But why would they take such a dramatic route for killing her then? She worked for them. There's a good chance she had personal ties to them. She gave a triumphant smile. That lets us conclude quite a lot. The murderer is someone from the Thorn family who had a personal grudge with Maria Radek related to the information the Thorn family wants to keep secret. They went to visit her to find out what she knew. When they found out, they killed her. This isn't a murder mystery. This is an issue of whether a powerful family is powerful enough to keep their criminal activity under wraps. But where's your proof? Where's your proof, Alexandria? Where's your proof before you make this statement? Now, the rich Thorns are likely corrupt, but are they murderers? You need proof first. Her face darkened. The likely impulsiveness bothers me, though. If it was the Thorn family, you'd think they would have done this during the daytime. That seems so risky. The murder being impromptu, based on what they found out from Marina, is still the most likely scenario. But to kill her right then and there? That says someone from that family is pretty unhinged. She looked at me. I also suspect our killer isn't done yet. Oh. Oh. Isn't done yet? Is there going to be multiple murders? I hadn't even considered the possibility that there would be more murders. It was so bizarre for Alcantra to have many murderers running around, let alone a serial killer. That was a scary thought. Alcantra had been my home for all my life. I couldn't imagine it ever being somewhere dangerous to live. Why do you think they aren't done yet? This is just a feeling, but given the likelihood that the killer isn't... How should I say this? Thinking all that clearly, I worry that they were aiming to settle all personal grudges related to whatever caused them to kill Marina. The Thorn family normally works with a clear modus operandi. They wouldn't resort to something drastic like this. I really hope you're wrong. So do I. So between Elgar, Vlad, or both, who do you think it is? I guess it had to be Elgar, since Vlad was born right around when Marina left. He's kind of old. Do you think he really could have pulled that off? For precisely that reason, I don't think it's Elgar Thorn. Well, there's lots of people at the Thorn Mansion. It doesn't necessarily have to be Elgar or Vlad. No, I know it's Vlad Thorn. do? How do you know that? He was just born when she left. That'd make it kind of weird for him to have a personal grudge against her. She just shrugged. Gut feeling. I rolled my eyes. But aside from that last statement, I was pretty impressed with her detective work. Pretty impressed, but pretty suspicious as well. There was much more to her than she let on. Well, you really lived up to your end of the bargain. But surely you have more than just a gut feeling to suspect Vlad? Alexandria's face darkened again, looking downright venomous. No, just a gut feeling. If there's an impulsive murderer among the Thorns, it's definitely Vlad. That's not very deductive. To my surprise, she smiled. Well, I can't be perfect on everything. She let out a big breath. Whew, that might have been the longest I talked in my life. Damn. A Thorn family member, probably Vlad, visited Marina Radek to find out what info she had about the Thorns from her time working for them, and killed her out of a personal grudge once they found out. She gave a silly little curtsy, and I gave her some applause. She looked very pleased with herself. I decided I could play along some more. If you're Sherlock, I guess that makes me Watson. Yeah. I slumped my shoulders in the feet. Watson is supposed to be dumb, isn't he? I don't know, actually. Typically, Watson is also pretty impressive with his intelligence as well. It's just that with Sherlock is a genius next to Watson. Like, Watson himself is really smart. He's just next to Sherlock, who overshadows, Watson's intelligence with his genius, basically. Alexandria laughed. She leaned in a little bit toward me and said mischievously, "Don't worry. You make a wonderful Watson." I couldn't tell if that was an attempt to flirt or she was just calling me dumb. I suppose the two weren't mutually exclusive. So, I can relay your deductions to Detective Rage? Or is it supposed to stay between us? Sure, go ahead. I hope it helps him with the investigation. Let him know that you learned all this from a charming and mysterious detective girl you met. But if he decides to act on anything, then he didn't learn it from me. You're really okay with me telling him about you? You seem like the type to keep yourself a secret. She gave me that mischievous look again. I know it must be tempting to keep me to yourself, but I can't hide from people forever. Also, I was hoping this wouldn't be the end of our deal, and if we still met up with each other, I'd eventually have to meet other people, so... She trailed off, looking a little awkward. I stepped in to help her out. Oh, that's cute. Of course. I always assumed this wasn't a one-time deal. I still have to take you to Walmart after all. The Chekhov's gun. This is the Chekhov's gun. Bringing her to Walmart. That's a Chekhov's gun, I bet. You mean it? Sure do. Do you, have lots of friends? Well, sort of. I have lots of friends, but it's summer break, so people are off doing different things. I have two very close friends I hang out with during the summer all the time. I took a look at her. She was trying to hide a smile now. Didn't think we have friends? You really are lonely, huh? Sure I am. I thought that was kind of a pathetic thing to admit, but she seemed happy enough now. We made plans to meet up, in which I promised to take her to Walmart. The Chekhov's gun. I am literally going to Walmart Chekhov's gun. I'm really excited for this visit. We agreed that she would contribute to the mystery when she could between our town excursions. Before she headed out, I asked her a question. Hey, Alexandria, be honest with me. Am I your first friend? We're friends? Unless you don't want to be. No, I like to be friends. You just cut me off guard. Non-princess types use that word very casually. And yes, she gave me one last smile for the day. You are. At least she's not, going to decline saying, no, you're not my friend. Like, she's not declining us. She is not declining Nick, so that's good. She left with that. I didn't head home immediately. I stayed at the gazebo looking at the canal a little longer. I had things to wonder about. The murders were mysterious, but they weren't the only mysterious thing. Alexandria, you're mysterious too. Are you just a shy girl trying to make friends? Or is there something more to you? There were several things that didn't really add up. Obviously, there was the fact that she wouldn't tell me about her personal situation. But what made me the most suspicious was that someone who was supposedly new to the area and didn't have any connections knew so much about the suspects in the case. It seemed like she knew even more than I did, and I lived here my entire life, plus had access to investigation files. So how did she learn what she knew? It could be that she's connected to the Thorns somehow. She's not revealing to us her last name, and she's really steadfast on Vlad being the killer. She could be a Thorn family member that not a lot of people know about, and who's been like isolated from the rest of the town, or she could be, a family member that just, moved in. She could have just moved in. I'm thinking she's a Thorn. I am thinking Alexandria is a Thorn. There was also the strange certainty about some of her deductions. There was the insistence that Miss Radek's murderer killed her impulsively. It was possible, but I don't know how you could really determine that. Additionally, why was she so certain that the murderer was Vlad? It seemed like if one of the Thorns did it, it would more likely be Elgert, given that he's much closer to Marina's age, and much more likely to have personal ties to her. It seemed to me that Alexandria had concluded that Vlad was the murderer and built her deductions around that. To her credit, her story fit reality pretty well. I wouldn't be surprised if she was right. There was something a little creepy about that. Vlad's gonna have an alibi. He is so gonna have an alibi. She proposed this deal to me. I thought it was to make friends. I wanted that to be true, but I had my doubts now. What if there was something she was hoping to achieve from this? But I couldn't just think of anything she'd gain from this deal if that was the case. I let out a big sigh. You really are a mystery, Alexandria. Chopin Nocturne in C minor B, 108. June 6, 1997. Oh, one day away from my birthday. Not my, day that I was born, but one day away from June 7th, my birthday. Yeah, I was not born in 97, though. I filled out some forms at the front desk while Detective Storm talked to my doctor a little ways to the side. Even despite the strange circumstances, it struck me as odd that the hospital was lax enough to let someone with an extreme case as mine go be a sidekick for a detective. Even so, I filled out the forms with my newly decided name of Victor. The hospital promised to contact Detective Storm if anyone who knew anything about me showed up. That was all I could hope for while I waited for my memories to return. Hello, Fusen! Detective Storm and the doctor finished their chat, and Detective Storm walked towards me. I guess she was akin to my guard now, a caretaker if we wanted to be more charitable. I was grateful that she was taking me away from the hospital, but I didn't trust her. I didn't trust her belief that I would be helpful in her investigation. I was an amnesiac after all. What would I contribute? I suspected that Detective Storm knew more about me than she let on. I also suspected that's why the hospital let me go so easily. Detective Storm caught up to me. Sorry about the wait. Doc there was ranting about how careful I should be with you, yada yada and junk like that. Thought I was gonna break you or something. Damn, what do you mean by break? Are you planning on breaking me? Of course not! I'm counting on you to help me solve this case. In fact, that's where we're going now, to the site of the first murder. First murder? Wait, first murder? Doc says I can't let you see the actual murder. Thinks it could be bad for your psychological health, but there was something outside the house where the murder was committed that I wanted you to see. I had him unconscious for 2 hours, and yet was being brought to the site of a murder. My suspicion about the whole situation grew deeper. Still, I was curious about what Detective Storm wanted me to see. Okay. We walked to her car, and she drove off toward the crime scene. Without even asking me, she rolled down both windows and started smoking. I figured I could probe her a little to learn about my situation. Has Alcantra always had a detective? Nah, I'm the first station one. They changed it because of some past crimes about a decade ago. I should thank you for getting me released and for letting me stay with you. Awfully hospitable of you to let a potential suspect stay with you. I didn't mention the amnesiac part. She gave me a wicked sneer, indicated that she knew what I was getting at. I like the tone of voice, kid. You don't trust anyone. I can respect that in my profession. Kid? She couldn't have been much older than me if her description of me was true. I took her to be in her early 30s. I got high hopes for you. If it's not often we get murders in Alcantra. In this case, it's pretty unique. I don't think it will be possible to solve without you. I knew it. She knew more about me than she was letting on. Do you know something about me? I know lots of things. I got your medical charts, the note in your wallet. Now I know you go by Victor now. I know you need a shower, all sorts of stuff. That's not what I meant. If you mean about your past, I don't know anything. That's why I'm having you tag along. Then why do you think the case can't be solved without me? Just a hunch. You get to trusting your hunches when you've been in the profession as long as I've been. I neglected to mention that she didn't look old enough to be in the profession that long, but I decided to let the subject drop. I didn't believe for an instant that she knew nothing, but obviously she wouldn't tell me anything. So, if I'm going to be a part of the investigation, can I know the details of the case? She put out her cigarette and promptly lit up a new one, puffing smoke out the window. That's the whole point. You might not like the sound of this, but I'm hoping you're the key to this whole thing. Of course, I need your memories to come back for you to be useful. I'm hoping seeing parts of the crime scene will jog some of those memories. I appreciated the honesty that she hoped I was a bad guy. But it was weird that she seemed sure I would confess to whatever wrongdoing I had been involved in once I got my memories back. If I really was a bad guy, I wouldn't rat myself out. Here's the case so far. A couple hours ago, the department gets word that a woman named Marcella Rivers has been killed. Not just killed, brutally killed. I'm talking about dismemberment, limbs scattered around the house. Weapon was probably a large knife, which the killer took with him from the scene. Killer made a real mess. Looks like she was killed later in the afternoon. No sign of the house being broken into, so she probably let the killer in voluntarily. This sounds very familiar to the murder of Marina Radek. This sounds very, very familiar. No witnesses? None. Any suspects so far? Besides me, of course. Can't tell you that. Wouldn't known potential suspects help me regain my memories? Department orders, sorry. It's like this, Victor. I'm not your guard. I'm not your babysitter either. Think of me as your guide. My guide? Yep, your guide. What does that mean? She glanced over at me. Her first time doing so the whole ride. She had a look on her face that I couldn't quite decipher. She rolled her smile that wasn't malicious or scheming, but it had the same sort of superiority a smile of that kind might have. It was almost like she was mocking me. You'll find out soon enough. Which didn't answer my question in the slightest. I spent the rest of the car ride in silence while she hummed to herself. There was still one thing on my mind that I hadn't asked her. This Ghost of Alcantra business. That's the game's name! Sorry for leaning into the mic. I probably blasted out someone's ears. I wanted to ask why the townspeople of Alcantra thought the murder was related to a ghost. I don't know if the previous me believed in ghost stories, but I certainly didn't. Oh, wow. Okay, we got people nearby the crime scene. We arrived at a mundane, middle-class neighborhood, and Detective Storm pulled up to a house near the end of the road. Multiple police cars were already present at the scene. In front of the house, despite the area being taped off, a large crowd had already gathered. Just like I thought the hospital to be greatly irresponsible for releasing me, I thought the same for the police here. Just hours after the murder, and the residents of the neighborhood were crowding around the scene like it was some sort of spectacle. Did they really just let passerby watch the investigation? The crowd was nearly all older people. The youngest couldn't have been any younger than 60. It disturbed me to think that the LD of Alcantra found murder so interesting. I mean, if I was retired and didn't have anything else to do, if a murder just happened nearby my house, of course I'm gonna watch the investigation. Hell, I might even offer, hey, do you need additional help? I can come in and, help investigate. I have time. I stepped out of the car, unsure what to do, while Detective Storm talked to some of the officers and then returned to me. Victor, the scene I want you to see is what the crowd is looking at. I'll be going inside to take another look inside the house. You're not allowed to see the actual body. The doctor doesn't want to risk traumatizing you. He didn't want you to see the scene outside the house either, but I insisted. She leaned in closer and spoke in a whisper. You think that I think you're part of a murder. Now, I'm not going to say what I think of you yet, but your doctor thinks your amnesia is self-induced, that you're desperately trying to forget something. If he had it his way, you stay in your nice little bubble of delusions, but I'm banking that whatever you want to forget might be what I want to know. She smiled, pretending she wasn't threatening me. Do you remember what the message in your wallet said? How could I forget? Her blood was on your hands. Something about that message felt right, though I didn't know whose blood was on my hands, or why they were on my hands. I remember the victim was Marcella Rivers. Neither Marcella nor Rivers sparked a return in my memory, but the name itself. Something about it seemed kind of familiar, though I couldn't put my finger on why. Marcella Rivers. Marina Radek. Marcella Rivers. Marina Radek. M.R. the initials. I'm gonna write that down real quick. Okay. Marina Radek and Marcella Rivers. Marina Radek. Marcella Rivers. Both of them have M.R. as initials. M.R. M.R. I'm gonna keep that in mind. Yes, of course I do. Good. Now look at the messages on the lawn, and you might realize why I wanted you to tag along for my investigation so badly. So the crowd was looking at some messages. She gave me a little wave. I'm gonna explore the more exciting parts for clues. We'll talk later tonight once you have time to digest things. Damn. Damn. I'll look at something more interesting, she literally said. Aren't you worried that I'll run off? She gestured at all the cops around. And where would you go? Not the brightest, are you? With a laugh to herself, she crossed over the tape and headed inside to the house where the body, or parts of the bodies I should say, would be located. I made my way through the crowd to see what had been written on the lawn. People made way like I was diseased. Looks of disgust and suspicion plastered on their faces. Did I really look that bad? Perhaps I looked suspicious getting out of the car with a detective. I did my best to ignore the looks and read what was written on the lawn. It would have been hard to miss. 2 sentences that looked like they were written in blood said this. Remember what you've done. This is your fault. Mozart Fantasia in D minor. Yeah, I can see why Detective Storm took such an interest in me. Her blood is on your hands. The timing was just too convenient with these messages, even if my accident had occurred before the murder. Remember what you've done. This is your fault. However, who could have predicted that I would get amnesia? This is your fault, and her blood is on your hands was one thing. But remember what you've done. If that message was intended for me, it implied that whoever wrote that knew I would get amnesia. But I only learned that several hours ago. Amnesia isn't something you just predict. I can see why Detective Storm would be intrigued by the possibility of the messages being connected to me, but how was I connected? I closed my eyes and tried to remember. Marcella Rivers. Something was familiar there, but nothing striking jumped to me. Remember what you've done. This is your fault. Her blood is on your hands. They were all too vague to bring back any memories for me. I was still as empty inside as I had been when I woke up. Seeing the scene had unwoken my memories, but it deepened a feeling within me. If I was to learn who I was, I would be greatly unhappy for doing so. I opened my eyes and turned around to head back into the car. The messages had rattled me a little, but nothing too major. Like when I had read the note, it just felt right. Not comfortable, but correct. Lost my thoughts. I was startled when I saw the other members of the crowd. I hadn't realized it, but they were staring at me. Pairs of judgmental eyes looking at me, as if they knew who I was and what I did even if I didn't. They're staring at me. Staring at me. Me. Stop. Stop staring at me! I looked over at the cops, who continued to chat amongst themselves. I turned back towards the crowd, who continued to stare directly at me. I couldn't ignore this. I walked up to a lady in front of me. "Excuse me, ma'am. Is something wrong?" She glared at me, a wrathful of fire in her eyes. "May the ghost of Alcantra curse you!" The ghost of Alcantra. I had been warned that the townspeople thought the murder had been for a ghost. But what did that have to do with me? Did all these people know something that I didn't? Was I a known criminal? Why wouldn't Detective Storm tell me anything then? Why would she just arrest me on the spot, memory loss or not? The older lady marched off. My stomach starting to turn itself into knots. I turned to an older gentleman who was behind her. The rest of the crowd continued staring at me. "Excuse me, sir. Do you know something about me? What's this about the ghost of Alcantra?" He gave me the same glare the older lady had given me earlier. I looked at the rest of the crowd. They all had the same look. One of loathing, disgust. This wasn't a mere dislike. This was pure hatred. Deeply unsettled, I turned back to the older gentleman. "I have nothing to say to killers." Killers? I'm a killer? Me. He waved to the rest of the crowd, and they all made their way to their homes. I stood there stunned. They thought I was a killer? Who is this ghost? Why do these people know what I've done, and I don't? I should be an expert on myself. And I'm not. Detective Storm must have known something about me. The townspeople did as well. Why won't anyone tell me then? Why does everyone but me know who I am? Sick to my stomach, I ran back to the car, to hide in safety in case there was more prying eyes who might look into me. I wanted to protect what little of me wasn't known. Chapman Nocturne Opening 9, Number 1. I hid in the car waiting for Detective Storm to finish her investigation. I constantly checked the mirrors to see if any passerbys were looking for or at me. As far as I could tell, the judgment from the locals was over, at least temporarily, but I still remained cowardly on guard. I realized the irony of hiding in a detective's vehicle given the likelihood of me being involved in a crime. Maybe it would have been better if Detective Storm had arrested me when I regained consciousness. Prison didn't sound so bad right now. I waited for about 20 minutes before Detective Storm came back and found me, manic and scared, cowering in the shotgun seat. I unloaded on her immediately after she opened the driver's side door. What's going on? Who am I? What have I done? I knew it wasn't fair to vent to her to vent like this to her, but I was desperate. Desperate that someone would tell me something, anything about me. She just smirked back at me. Well, I'd love to know all those things myself. She sat down behind the wheel and pulled out a cigarette, seemingly amused by my distress. How many cigarettes a day do you smoke? Something happened then? Holding back my fury at her nonchalance, I explained how the crowd had treated me. I barely said anything about the messages that were spray painted on the lawn. The vagueness of the messages on the ground paled in comparison to the effect of the direct attack I had received afterwards. After finishing my tirade, I realized that I was being unfair to Detective Storm. She had enough on her plate. And she didn't need to be my emotional babysitter too. I'm sorry. I was scared. To my surprise, she smiled at me. Not the condescending smirk she had already shown me, but a genuine one. Of course you were scared. Who wouldn't be? Now, I ain't a doctor, but I imagine being an amnesiac like yourself can't be easy. I know I'm asking a lot out of you for help in this case, but I want you to know that I'm here to help you out. Embarrassed, she went back to puffing her cigarette. Can't have our cheap hope of solving this case falling apart now, can we? Thanks, Detective Storm. Sorry for yelling at you. No worries. But please tell me what you know. Why would those people have thought that I'm a murderer? Do you know something that I don't? Listen, Victor. There's no one who will know about you as much as you do. It's my job to get you back to that point by looking after you. Okay. But what about the crowd then? Why do they think I'm a murderer? Don't worry about that so much. Alcantra is a small town that likes ghost stories. The people here are suspicious. They probably saw you in my car and made assumptions about you being a suspect. She threw a cigarette out the window and picked up a new one. Which isn't entirely off base. You are a suspect of some kind. People would really jump to that conclusion just because I was in your car? If I was a murderer, you wouldn't be letting me run around freely like you just did. Like I said, the people here are the suspicious types who gossip. Probably decided to link the murder to the outsider. People don't trust outsiders here. They think I'm a murderer because I'm an outsider? That seems beyond paranoid. What can I say? The people here believe in ghosts. You can't expect much from them. What is with the ghosts of Alcantra stuff anyway? Is Alcantra known for ghost stories? Don't ask me. I'm a detective. I'm not in the business of following supernatural leads. There's the town storyteller who can tell you the story of the ghost of Alcantra. I'll tell you about her later tonight. First, we should head over to my place and get you some food. Hopefully that'll calm you down some. That sounded like a good idea. I judged Detective Storm too early. She had a kinder side to her, too. She drove us to her home, which was located in what must have been a wealthier part of the town. I was suspicious this place could be afforded with the salary of the detective. How much do detectives get paid? Hold on, how much do they get paid? It was a welcome environment for me, and certainly preferable to staying in the hospital. I've got a room on the second floor you can use. Bathroom is down the hall to the left. Bathroom upstairs is right across from your room. I'll show you later. Not like you got anything to unpack anyhow. She headed into her kitchen and started rummaging through the cupboards. You cook? Oh, you cook? Why so shocked? What, a single detective can't cook? Just doesn't match the image I had of you. Well, you'll find out that gals who have to take care of themselves are a lot more capable than you might think. I sat on the couch and she cooked dinner. I had offered to help, but her own words, I'm not letting amnesiac fuck up my food. So I minded my own my own business. She ended up making some Italian fish dish. Said it was cioppino with fennel and salmon. Plated and everything. It tasted fantastic. Cooking a hobby of yours? It's a necessity. After we ate, she looked at me expectantly. So, what do you want to ask me? Oh, do we get choice? A lot of things, but I figured she wouldn't tell me what I really wanted to know. It was worth a shot, though. Did the hospital really let me go so easily? Define easily. I had to make the case that I needed you for my investigation. Releasing someone who had just woken up with amnesia seems neglectful. Not that I'm not grateful. It just seems kind of weird. Well, unique circumstances. Murders don't happen here very often. I probably wouldn't have gotten away with it if your case wasn't so weird and that note wasn't in your ID. As there was nobody claiming any relation to you, they were just as glad for me to take you off their hands. I mean, yeah, If they just have an amnesiac that does not have like a health condition going on, I don't see why the hospital would want to keep him in there if there's like not a lot going on in terms of like a health condition in general. I don't know if that reassured me or made me feel worse. So, who is this person that could tell me about the ghost of Alcantra? Like Detective Storm, I didn't believe in this ghost of Alcantra, but given that the townspeople here were so adamant about the recent phenomenon being related to the supernatural, I thought it would be useful to learn about. Perhaps it would even help me remember things. Her name is Elaine Weatherton. She's a weird bird, but she knows her stuff. I'll give you a map to her place tomorrow. She can tell you about some town legends. She knows everything about Alcantra. It was nice to get a straight answer for once. Last thing. Do you think there's any connection between what was spray painted on the lawn and the message in my wallet? What do you think? Oh, sorry, I keep on hitting the mic. It's suspicious, but I think there's a pretty good chance it's a coincidence. If it was targeted at me, whoever made those messages would have known I was going to forget things, and that's crazy. Can't say I agree. I think they're definitely connected. And why's that? Just a hunch. The hunch that makes me think you're the key to solving this whole thing. That hunch of hers again. Just when I thought I could get her to talk to me, she had been extremely pleasant throughout the whole evening, but I had to remind myself that her kindness was conditional on my helpfulness. She had called herself my guide, but really I was the one she wanted to be a guide to the answer she wanted. In a sense, we wanted the same thing out of me. I looked out the window, noticing it was dark out. Even from the house, you could see the glow from the moon illuminate her neighborhood. There was something comforting about that moonlight. It drew me in like a moth to the flame. I'm guessing you wouldn't let me go for a walk, being a suspect and all. She waved towards the door. Be my guest! Really? She gave me one of her mocking smirks. Oh, sure. I'm not worried. She got up from the table. You can't leave anyway. She left me there to decipher what she meant. It was true. I didn't have any place to go. Still, nothing was stopping me from just running away. So what did she mean by that? Whatever. I shouldn't take everything she said so seriously. I wanted to go for a walk, and wasn't going to let her words throw me off. I knew I liked the night. The idea of the moon, the stars, and the quiet ambience spoke to me. I got up from the table and walked out. Beethoven Moonlight Sonata. Oh, I can read the full name. Oops. Oh, hold on. Sonata Movement 1. Got it. I got it from my Twitch stream because I'm watching it on the side to make sure that everything's running correctly. The effect was immediate. The night air wasn't just comforting, it was therapeutic. For the first time since I woke up, I relaxed. It had been a long day. Not everyone wakes up a suspected criminal amnesiac. I'd let the clear light of the moon alleviate my tension. It was nostalgic. It made me envious of memories I couldn't remember. The person I was must have made some pretty special memories under the night sky. Maybe the return of those good memories would make the return of the inedible bad ones worth it. As I walked, I tried to process what had happened to me today. The adjective I think was the most fitting for today was weird. Right. Weird was the word. Today wasn't scary as much as it was strange. Things were bizarre when my amnesia was probably the most explainable part of the day. There was the message in my wallet. Nothing about that made sense. What was there to be gained by leaving me that message? It didn't even make sense if I left the message for myself. There's no way I could know that I was going to forget stuff. What if Detective Storm was setting me up? Maybe nothing about my ID was tampered with, and she made all that up when she found out I was an amnesiac. Wait, that doesn't make sense at all. She was only interested in me and the case because of the message left in my wallet. Damn it! I was being paranoid. Even so, I couldn't trust her. She knows more about me than she's letting on. Then there was the strange behavior of the people around me. Could it really be chalked up to some small town paranoia? It was unreasonable to conclude that they knew who I was. Surely, I would have been brought in to the police if everyone knew I was a murderer. So why were they so confident in their judgment of me? Even with Detective Storm's explanation, I couldn't imagine any group of people to behave like that. Lastly, there was me. I had some recollections. I felt guilty and sorrowful when I woke up. That's why I knew I must be involved with some wrongdoing of some kind. The messages today didn't surprise me. In fact, they felt right. So what can we say about me? That I'm probably a bad guy who thinks it deserves some sort of punishment, who's extremely untrustworthy and really likes the night. I looked up at the moon, a lone figure shining amid nothing. The loneliness of the moon was inspiring. The stars that seemed so close and shone so bright were actually billions of miles away. The earth that was so close was so unlike the moon, inhabited and full, while the moon remained just a rock. During the day, the moon was overshadowed, hidden away by the sun's radiance. And when it was the moon's time to shine, nobody was around to see it. Yet the moon shone anyway. And me? I was going to have to be like the moon. If I was a wrongdoer, I'll face that. If I had been a good person, I will embrace that. Whoever's blood was on my hands, I will accept that. Whoever was trying to use me, I will rise above them. I was a victor. Currently a fake pretending to be somebody, but eventually I would become who I was meant to be. I was going to think of things like this. Today my journey to accept me had begun. From the strength of the moon, I found the strength to go on. Who was I have no idea. Who am I? Someone just found their resolve. Who will I be? Well, let's find out. I made my way back towards Detective Storm's house. She had told me I couldn't run. She was right. I couldn't run away from myself, and I wasn't going to. I returned to the house, and Detective Storm showed me to my room. If she noticed anything different in my demeanor, she didn't say anything. Exhausted, but determined, I went to bed. Then, as if to unravel all the confidence I had just found, as if to laugh at my newfound resolve, the nightmare came. Oh. What's the nightmare, Victor? Slavonic March. I was in a dark cavern. Cavern wasn't exactly right, but there wasn't any other way to describe what I was in. I was surrounded by darkness, a floor of darkness, a ceiling of darkness, and seemingly no walls, a dark room that never seemed to end. However, about 50 meters ahead of me, there was a singular point of illumination. I could see a staircase that led to a platform. Around the platform were a ring of torches and a crowd of people that surrounded that platform. Curious, I approached the platform. As I approached, the crowd turned towards me. I took a startled step backwards. These people didn't have faces. They were otherwise normal. No more builds, skin colors, hair colors, and hairstyles. But no faces. No eyes, mouth, or nose. Just plain skin. Creepy. They made a path for me, like they had been waiting for me. The only noise that could be heard were my footsteps as I made my way to the top of the platform. At the top was a table, but not an ordinary one. This table was made of a pure rock slab. There were no designs, and there were no seats. There's no doubt this was a sacrificial altar. A blonde hair woman. Interesting. A woman was lying on the platform. She had a smaller build and wore a purple nightgown. She had long, blonde, wavy hair. I imagined she was quite beautiful, but I couldn't tell for sure. Like the crowd, she had no face. I couldn't even tell if she was alive or dead. Next to her on the table lay a knife so large you might have considered it a small sword. The hilt was gold, and had a single ruby embedded into the middle of it. My gut turned. This really was the sacrificial platform. It was pure instinct, but I knew the image of the woman laying on the platform was off. And it was off because she was unharmed. Ooh, are we going to be the one to stab her? I had felt nothing more so in my life. I knew what would happen to this woman. That knife would cut her into 8 times, 4 times in the arm, and 4 in the chest. It wasn't a memory. It was a fact. Terrified of what was going to happen, I turned around and raced down the steps, intending to flee. The faceless crowd stopped me. They moved so quickly and synchronously. How do I pronounce this word? Hold on. Synchronously, as if they were a single entity, blocked the entrance, leaving me nowhere to run to. They made noises, but I couldn't figure out what they were saying. The noises they made weren't human, just indiscernible hisses and growls. I tried to push my way through, but I was met with an increase in hostile hissing and growling. They pushed me back up the steps. They were like me. They knew the image at the top of the platform was incomplete. Worse, they expected me to complete that image. I stared into the crowd, desperate for them to understand my desire to run away. Faceless, but expectant, I could feel their growing impatience with me. They were goading, encouraging. They demanded violence. The woman's death must be brought about by me. I knew they were right. The moment I saw the woman, I knew that I had been responsible. The moment I saw that woman, I knew that I had been responsible for her death. As you can see, the 97 and 87 material have very different tones. Indeed! Yeah, this was a bit more supernatural than the 87 tone. Although the both of them do mention the ghost. Like, I do notice that both of them mention a ghost. This one feels a little bit more supernatural, small town, small town with a, cryptic past. I guess cryptic is the correct word. It feels a little bit more in the world of the supernatural. Meanwhile, in 87, it kind of feels like, a small town mystery where kids are getting together to help, solve the crime. While this one is just a dark, hey, there's something up with this town sort of vibe. The moment I saw that woman, I knew that I had been responsible for her death. The reality was that this woman was dead, and that her blood was on my hands. Her blood was on my hands. The crowd wouldn't relent till things were made right. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. But my body was no longer listening to me. I turned around and slowly made my way up towards the platform. As if I was being drawn in by something supernatural, I returned to the platform where I was greeted by the woman and the knife. My fingers closed around the handle of the knife. I felt the weight of the blade. I imagined it in the woman's flesh. The volume of the crowd increased behind me. They demanded blood. Despite all my willpower, despite my wish to just run away and hide, I raised the knife with trembling arms. The woman made no effort to stop me. It was as if she was already dead. Thankfully, she had no face in which to judge me. Is she gonna grow a face now? Screaming internally, shaking externally, I brought the knife down to the first spot. A spot a couple of inches from the elbow, heading downwards towards the wrist. The knife carved through the flesh of her arm so easily. I had barely sliced through the skin before the screech of blown bone-meeting blade stopped me. Her blood dyed the stone platform red. Why is it so easy? Why didn't she try to stop me? Why? Why? The crowd roared. They demanded more. It wasn't enough. It wasn't nearly enough. 7 more strikes to go. I knew I wasn't done yet. I was guilty, and she was to be killed. I made the next 2 cuts in the middle of her arm. I imagined how she might defend herself with her arm. I had placed the cuts accordingly. I was shaking. The knife got heavier and heavier, but as it got heavier, it got easier to cut her. I felt the beginnings of moisture form around my eyes. I didn't want to do this. Anything but this. She didn't deserve this. Anything but this. But I couldn't stop. I had no other choice. This was simply how things were. Against my wishes, my trembling arm raised the knife again. The crowd behind me yelled for more. Rising closer and closer to a fever pitch, the voices seemed to grow more and more understandable. I could start to hear what they were saying. Kill her! Kill her! More! 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 I brought the knife down once more, this time right below the wrist. Damn! For the first time, I heard the woman's voice join the cacophony. Join the cacophony of torment echoing in my ears. There was no mouth from which to hear it, but I heard her scream in my head. I knew that voice had screamed. It was a cry of pain, a plea for me to stop. The familiarity of the voice broke me, and the tears now flowed freely from my eyes, landing on her. Oh my god, I can see the cut! I can see the cut in the art! Oh my god, I just now noticed that. I can see the cut. Holy crap! The familiarity of the voice broke me, and the tears now flowed freely from my eyes, landing on her. That scream still gives me the chills, even though I know it's coming. Oh yeah, no, I knew that at some point I was going to hear a scream, but it was really well placed in this scene. Holy crap. Yeah, I knew there might have been a scream coming, because I had a feeling that there was going to be, no voiceless, murder. As soon as the crowd started cheering, I'm like, okay, there's going to be a scream from the woman at some point, even though she may not have a face. But damn. I turned back towards the crowd, joining her plea for this to stop. My request was not answered. The crowd roared and roared, a fever for violence raging amongst them. Kill her! More! Are we going to see knife wounds on her chest? I had just gotten through the introduction. The main event remained. Just like before, I knew exactly where the next 4 strikes in her chest were to be placed. More! More! Roared the crowd. Stop! Stop! Pleaded the woman's voice in my head. I willed my arms to stop. I pleaded for my body to listen to me. But it just wouldn't listen. Things weren't right yet. I raised my arm, the weight of the blade ready for the weight of a life. I would go from left to right. 4 more strikes, and this image would match reality. More. More. I brought the knife down on the woman, a spot above the left breast. Her flesh barely resisted the steel, but there was so much blood. Beautiful, disgusting little pools that served as evidence for what had been done. The knife, shining a vivid red now, tore her apart as her screams tore me apart. An eruption of approval broke out from the crowd behind me. Yes, this was what was right. She was to die. I was to be a murderer. More. More. I was screaming now, begging for this to end. But my screams were in vain. We just saw the knife wound on her chest. The crowd kept chanting, and my body listened to those chants, and I brought the knife down 2 more times, striking where her heart should be. The knife glistened. The blood blossomed. I watched the river of blood flow from the woman to the stone table. I did not know which of the 4 strikes to her chest had killed her. It didn't matter. The end result was a death, and that had haunted me, and would continue to do so. Her scream still rang through my ears, even though I couldn't possibly scream. I started sobbing uncontrollably, my tears falling onto her chest, blending with the blood pooling on her chest. The crowd continued to roar. Just one more! Just one more! I hadn't known what had made me feel the guilt I had when I had woken up from the accident. Whatever it was, it couldn't compare to this feeling. This torture. My arm moved against my will for the last time. Looked at where the woman's face should have been. I imagined her pleading for her life, begging me to stop, reaching her hands out to touch my cheek. This isn't what we promised. I responded by begging for forgiveness. The crowd screamed, demanding her death. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I obliged the crowd for the last time. I brought the knife down one last time, right above the right breast. The crowd erupted, and the woman's voice within my head stopped. I no longer had the strength to pull the knife out of her body. I left it in her chest. The weight of what I've done made it impossible for me to remove the arbiter of my wrongdoing. It was over, and all was right. I was a murderer. She was dead. Her broken body lay on the platform. My spirit broken from having killed her. I looked towards the crowd, and they were applauding. I sobbed violently, and they just kept clapping, and clapping, and clapping. Even if this was how it was supposed to be, I couldn't take it. I would break. No one could live a life knowing they had done this. I imagined what that life would be like. I remember the knife. Right on cue, I began to hear her again. Unable to deal with the prospect of having her voice in my head for an eternity, I turned towards the thunderous applause from the crowd. It gave them one more chance to scream for blood. I raised the knife and plunged into my own throat. I awoke with a shout, covered in sweat. I threw off the covers and ran to the bathroom from my room ran to the bathroom across from my room and finally threw up. Detective Storm found me the next morning, cradling the toilet and crying. Had a nightmare. June 19th. Not 19th, June 9th, 1987. June 19th? What the hell, Michael? Damn. Damn, that was quite a scene to read. That was quite a scene to read, and that was quite a way that I'm going to be ending my stream for today. My body is still recovering from the food poisoning I had from a few days ago, so I was not planning for a super long stream. However, at the same time, I'm really excited to read more of this next week, since I am planning on streaming this more next Saturday as well. So I'm really excited to see more of Ghost of Alcantra, especially after the scene in 1997. That was really dark, but super interesting at the same time, so I'm really enjoying what I'm reading so far. Like, the 1987 line seems a bit more wholesome, like, you know, a small mystery where, you know, the kids of the town are trying to solve what was going on. Meanwhile, the 1997 is, like, you know, a dark supernatural thriller. I really enjoyed the contrast between the two different stories. One is a bit more lighthearted, while the other is, like, you know, a bit more darker into, you know, the lore of the city. Like, not city, really, like, town. I guess in a way, the best way to describe it is 1987 is like Stand By Me. Meanwhile, 1997 is Twin Peaks. That's me making random references. But yes, thank you all for watching my stream tonight. I know it was a bit shorter than the one I did for the Fall in Love Festival. Like, I am still very weak from the case of food poisoning I got, but I hope I could be a bit more active next week when I stream again. I will be doing a lot more Ghost of Alcantra a bit more frequently very soon, since I do want to, you know, try giving like maybe a bi-weekly stream of this game, like preferably weekly streams, but I cannot promise I could stream every week. Glad you liked what you saw so far. Yes, thank you, Captain Erica. I am really enjoying Ghost of Alcantra so far, and I'm really curious to see the connection between the murders of Marcella Rivers and Marina Radek. Like, they're both very similar in name. That's why I made a note of their very similar names. They both have MR as their initials. MR are their initials. That is a huge connection between the two of them. And they were dismembered in their house. They let the murderer into their home. So there is two things that are very similar between both cases between the 10 years. So in the next stream, I'm hoping that I'm able to, you know, find another connection between the murders in 97 and the murders in 87. Maybe, just maybe, they're conducted by someone who is the same person between both cases. That is the worst way of saying I believe that it could be the same person who did both murders, but we'll have to see more next time. Hopefully I'll have a much clearer head and not mix up what I was trying to say, because literally I was just trying to say once if it's the same person or someone connected to the case in 87 repeating the crimes in 97. But only time will tell. Thank you all for watching the stream, and I hope you all have a great evening, morning, or afternoon wherever you are in the world.